Hey friends, Kelly here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing something a little different than my norm. I am going to do a 12 by 12 spread. I have not done 12 by 12s in such a long time, but I keep seeing them on Instagram and I'm so inspired and I wanted to jump back in and give it a try. I also have been very inspired by paint and by cut files, so I'm gonna give it a go here. So first thing I'm going to do is take my background paper and I'm just going to put down some basic white acrylic paint. Now, mixed media is not something I have a lot of experience with. I'm still in a very baby steps getting to know this medium kind of space. So I just decided to go for it. So with a dry brush, I've just gone ahead and I've put down some paint. I did mark the areas where I thought I would keep most of my work on the background so that I didn't have to paint the whole thing. The other thing I've done is gone into my stash and pulled out some papers, and I've already gone ahead and created these little cut files. I was really inspired by a lot of the floral cut files I've seen lately, but a large cut file really intimidated me. So I decided to start getting my feet wet with these tiny little florals. I've gone in and I've pulled out papers from my stash that all are drawn from the sunset photo that I'm going to be working with today. Now this background paper I'm working with right now is from One Canoe 2. I'll have to look at the collection. I want to say it's gold and something. And this is a page that I can't imagine any use for in the way I do projects. But when I saw the colors of the sunset that were painted into this page, I just thought they were perfect for the overall mood that I wanted to create. So I've decided I'm going to go ahead and pull that piece out, and I might not ever use the other scrap piece, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead with what I have. The other cool paper I have to work with today is this wood grain, and it's embossed. It came this way in a 12 by 12 paper pack from a Park Lane Papery, which I believe is Joanne's brand. And unfortunately, it's no longer available, so I'm not even going to bother linking it for you guys. But it was called Mid-Century Modern. Okay, so I am working off of a sketch. I did go ahead and draw myself a sketch. I deviate quite a bit from it, but at least it gave me a place to start. And I'm going to go ahead and start trimming down my papers. And I have an idea of starting to build some layering. This paper was really cool, this wood grain paper, and I don't want to waste any of it, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut out the center because you're not going to see it anyhow. So I'm going to go ahead and start placing things down and getting a feel for it, and right away I'm not sure that I love it going from edge to edge. So I also want to bring in some more texture, and I thought tearing the edges of these papers would end up giving me that extra bit of texture that I really wanted. I also contemplated doing some sort of tear at the top and maybe putting a little piece of that wood grain behind it, but I thought that might be too distracting. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to use my edge distressor. I believe this was from Close to My Heart. I've had it forever, and I know Tim Holtz makes one that's very similar. Now, here's where, again, my mixed media kind of inexperience comes into play. I grabbed this ink. I have them all my ink pads are swatched. And I grabbed this one and I tried to go ahead and distress the edges, and it didn't quite work. That is because this is a pigment ink and it just didn't work the way I wanted it to. So I've gone in and I've grabbed one of my paint brushes, the ones that have water already in them, and I'm going to use that to help spread out some of that color. Now that did work. I got lucky because otherwise I was going to have to rip a tiny bit of that edge off and start over. But thankfully this technique worked for me. A great example of when you're trying out some new things, just try everything. You never know what might work. So in my case, that totally worked. Next, I'm going to go ahead and start working out where I'm going to place all of my pieces. Now, like I said, I have a sketch, and in my sketch, I kind of had this idea of building upon layers. It's a fun thing to be able to do in this format, and it's not something I do a ton in Pocket Pages, and it's certainly not a ton done a ton in my traveler's notebook inserts because I want to keep things relatively flat. So being able to build up lots of layers in this project was really fun and freeing and felt very creative. So I really appreciated the ability to do that. Now you can see I've gone ahead and I have torn the edge of another piece of scratch paper, that floral. I just love that floral paper. And I went ahead and did the same thing. I used some of that pigment ink and my water brush and went ahead and added a little bit of color. It gives it actually like a distressed edge. It almost looks like a tea stain. Now I'm going through and auditioning pieces out of this adorable little handmade kit that my best friend gave to me back in April or March, kind of in the beginning of the pandemic, and she dropped off some little presents for me one day, and this was one of the things she'd given me. It was this beautiful little curated kit that she made, and I just love it because while these colors are beautiful for me and I love them, they are exactly what I think of when I think of my best friend. So it was really fun to be able to pull this out and use all of these little bits. So I've gone ahead and pulled out all of the pieces that I thought I might incorporate just to get them out of the little kit that she gave me and start seeing how they all fall onto the page. I honestly don't know where some of these bits came from. I want to say the puffy stickers, they totally look like a Maggie Holmes thing, so I'm gonna guess they're a Maggie Holmes collection of some sort. And otherwise, everything else she just pulled out of her stash, which is such a cool thing and such a beautiful gift to give. I know a lot of people really love to do pocket letters and things like that, but sometimes that's overwhelming, and just to pull together little bits and ends and give them to a friend is such a gift. Okay, so here I am again trying out some mixed media. I have this idea of doing some splatters, and trying to get any of the ink to come off the pad didn't work, but I realized that if I lifted it up and kind of got underneath it, I was able to pull out some of the color. So I'm just going to go through and create some splatters. I wasn't too worried about splattering onto this page. If it was a darker ink, I would have probably forgone this step because that still freaks me out. But with the amount of water I had added to the ink color, it really again just kind of created this really beautiful tea stain effect. Now I'm going to go ahead and start playing around with the layers. And I just loved being able to add in texture. So I had this big hunk of tissue paper sitting on my desk that I had from a gift that I'd received, and I kept it because it was such a pretty color. And here's a great example of when it came in handy. It just fit in so well with this spread. I'd also contemplated using some vellum I have, but I opted to leave that out, and instead I pulled out this washi tape that kind of has the same look as the vellum that I had played around with. I'm not even sure if that vellum piece made it into the video. I might have edited it out. I kind of already forgot. So you might not even know what I'm talking about, but it was a very beautiful vellum piece that had this rose gold floral stamped onto it, and it almost was too fancy, if that's the right word. So the washi tape that I go for is just the right amount of fancy. So, and that washi tape, you might have noticed I tore it down the middle unsuccessfully the first time, but I did get there eventually. And then again, just to kind of continue through that ripped, torn edge that I've got going on. And I did leave some of the edges square, obviously, because my photos are square, clean edges. Some of the other page parts are clean edges. I wanted to make sure I had a good mix of both. Now here again, you can see where I'm tearing that washi tape down the center, and I'm going to add that and a little bit more of this tissue paper just to kind of carry that through and create another interest so that your eye is drawn down through this large cluster here in the center. Now I've gotten to the point where I'm ready to commit to all of these different layers, and I'm going to go ahead and get those down, and then I'm going to move into embellishing. These cut files were cut files that I got from Pink Fresh Studios Facebook fan group. So I can't really link them, but I will, I'll talk about that again in just a moment. First, I wanted to talk about the Xyron that you just saw. I had mentioned this previously in a video. I was looking for the large Xyron machine, quote unquote, and when I was looking for it, I realized all it is a casing that holds the refill, and you don't actually need the hard casing for the refill part. So I don't even have the machine, so to speak, that big refill sits in. I just have the refill, and it was awesome for this, with the exception that it took me forever to get all of the stickiness down onto the paper and off of the middles. So I had used that little embossing tool to kind of go around all of the edges, and then I cleaned it up with this rubber adhesive eraser, and I will make sure to link that tool below. I think it's an awesome tool. I use it all the time. So while using the Xyron sticker maker to do these cut files was very handy, it also was a bit time consuming. But for me, it was better than me trying to use some sort of wet adhesive to glue that all down. Okay, so as I was saying about the cut file with the Pink Fresh Studio Facebook group, maybe somebody else can find this better than I could, but I could not find an easy way to just go in and find some sort of like link to all of their cut files I offer. I actually had to go through and scroll, and I found that to be actually just fine because I saw a ton of inspiration and really cool things, found a bunch of other cut files that they offer for free. So it was totally worth the time of doing all the scrolling. And in the end, I ended up with the cutest cut files that I can play around with. Now I'm getting to the part where I'm just trying to finish adding in the extra little touches. I have all these bits of paper on my desk, these little scraps, and I just want to see where I can tuck them in to just kind of incorporate more of the color and like I said, to draw your eye up and around. Now eventually my title is going to sit in the upper left portion of this page, so that's how I want your eye to draw, from the upper top left kind of down into the bottom right hand corner. And I'm going to accomplish that with my title being on the top left and my journaling being on the top, or rather the bottom right hand side. Now here I'm playing around with all of those little bits that I had taken out of that little kit. I really wanted to use the butterfly and that extra floral piece, but it didn't quite work. The butterfly didn't really make sense. I wasn't adding any other butterflies. And the floral, I felt like it competed with the cut file florals, even though it was perfect colors and it's beautiful. In the end, I opted to go with these puffy stickers. Puffy stickers are a hard thing for me to use sometimes because, like I've said before, I don't want to bulk up my traveler's notebook pages, and sometimes my pocket pages it doesn't really make sense to use a lot of those cute things because of just the way I do my pocket pages in my Project Life album. So this was a great project to use some puffy stickers. Next, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my souffle pens and my glaze pens. I have created my own little swatch page there so that I can easily identify my colors. I love these pens. I use them all the time. So I've got those out on my desk. I'm also going to go ahead and pull out my alphas that I'm going to use, and then these little word stickers, tiny word phrases and stickers. I remembered that my friend had given me a whole sheet of them, and after spending some time looking through all of them, which I edited out for you guys, I did go ahead and I found the perfect sentiment. It says, "Stronger than yesterday." So that let me segue into talking about what the story is here. So this is a moment I captured one evening in the spring when I decided that I wanted to try running again. I have tried over the past couple of years to be a runner, quote unquote. Like, I want to be a runner. I have never had it in me. But I decided that I was going to give it a go again, especially during the whole stay-at-home quarantine pandemic era in the spring. I just was dying to get out of my house, and so this was a great safe way for me to do that. I live by a beautiful nature park, and so in the evenings after my husband would get home from work and dinner was on the table, I would take some time for myself and go out, and I started to run. I am very happy to say that I am still running. I have been running this entire time. This photo was taken in April. It is now the end of August, and I'm still running. Am I consistent? No. Am I getting out of the house? Yes. So it's a win. Now I'm going to take my souffle pens to the project, and I'm just going to go around the whole thing and start adding in these dots. Now this is going to mimic for me what an enamel dot would look like. I don't have enamel dots that match these colors perfectly, but apparently I have souffle pens that do. This is a great trick that I use all the time. I use my souffle pens to create these little extra dimension. I also use some really fun glittery alpha stickers that are very thick. They're foam, and this was a great opportunity to use those because, again, they don't fit well into my traveler's notebook inserts, and I don't use a lot of my alphas when it comes to my pocket pages. So I'm adding in my journaling, and that is it. This page is all done. I am so happy that I decided to give a 12 by 12 spread a go again. It's been so long since I've gone into this size and format, and I really enjoyed this creative process. I enjoyed doing something different, and especially playing with paints and inks and cut files and different materials. It was a blast. So thanks so much for watching, and if you liked this video, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and then finally don't forget to hit that little bell so you're getting notifications when new videos are posted. Thanks friends, and I'll see you next time.